the City Museum in the heart of Wrocław to check out what it's like. Before we get inside, just a bit about this building, which itself is a beautiful 18th century built royal palace. It was originally called Spatgen's Palace, having been named after its original owner, a Heinrich Gottfried von Spatgen, who lived here from 1717. He was the Chancellor of Bishop Francis Louis of Nuremberg. Yet he didn't manage to enjoy the palace for long, as he died in 1750, and the building was bought by King Frederick II, or Frederick the Great. This then made Breslau, as Wrocław was called then, a royal residence city, alongside Berlin and Königsberg. Succeeding kings extended the property and changed its design and character as they saw fit. However, by 1926 it was owned by the local government of Breslau and started to be used as a museum. Sadly, it was heavily damaged during the Second World War, and only the north wings and a fragment of the south wing actually survived. The rest of the palace had to be demolished. Yet by 1963 it had reopened as a museum and today tells the story of the city of Wrocław. I'm about to head inside to check it out, so come along as we make our way through these unassuming front doors. Here I am in the entrance hall, which looks very stylish. We turn to our right to enter the ticket office, where I bought a normal ticket for a cost of 20 zloty, or £3.85 or €4.70 or thereabouts. I also opted for an audio guide that came in a range of languages, which was an additional 15 zloty. I'd highly recommend this, as it was really good and gave lots of helpful info as I went round. And there's also free lockers here too. So with ticket in hand and audio guide running, I returned to the entrance hall and this time headed to the left to start a tour around the museum. The first room has this dramatic modern painting by famous Polish artist Franciszek Starowinski. It's certainly dramatic. I pass on through to the first part of the City Museum, where you're taken through the early history of the settlement that was established here, originally called Wrocław, and I learned how it developed through the medieval period into a steadily growing town, and then a city. So here's what I learned, my potted history of Wrocław. Wrocław was first mentioned in the 10th century, where it had already become a stronghold situated at the intersection of two long existing trade routes, the Via Regina and the Amber Road. Founded on what is now called the Cathedral Island, it soon had to expand beyond that to both sides of the Oder River, and in doing so it really began to flourish. This was mostly during the time it was part of the Kingdom of Poland, except for a brief 16-year spell under the Duchy of Bohemia. By 1241 it had been renamed Wrocław, but it came under attack during the first Mongol invasion of Poland, and the city took a right pounding. However, the Mongol army was kicked out pretty swiftly, but not before leaving a city in ruins. It then, it seemed, became a bit ethnically diverse as new people arrived from the west and started rebuilding it. By 1262 it was pretty much fixed up, and joined the Hanseatic League with the name Breslau, which is obviously a more Germanic name. But change is always a constant, and by 1348 the city was incorporated with almost the entirety of Silesia into the Kingdom of Bohemia. Skip forward to 1526 and at the Battle of Mohacs, King Louis II of Hungary and Croatia met an untimely end, and so the Habsburg monarchy of Austria inherited the Bohemia crown along with this city. Under Habsburg's rule, Breslau became more Germanic and continued to grow through the years until around the 1740s, when Silesia was annexed by the Kingdom of Prussia during the War of the Austrian Succession. It was our old friend Frederick II of Prussia who captured the city without a struggle in January 1741. The war continued though, but it was only 22 years later, in 1763, that Empress Maria Theresa, the ruler of the Habsburg dominion, renounced Silesia and Breslau to Prussia. But by 1813, King Frederick William III of Prussia gave a speech in the city that Prussia would join the Russian Empire against Napoleon. So, back to war again. By the way, we're now in a section of the museum called the Royal Apartments, laid out just like it would have been in the 1700s, and this was my favourite part to see on my visit. You enter into the Rococo room of King Frederick II, with the green and red rooms being dedicated to the reign of his nephew and successor, King Frederick William III. Many decisive and far-reaching decisions were made within these walls, and it was great to walk in the footsteps of kings. Getting back to the history of Wrocław, it was also in the 1800s that Polish resistance began to gain traction in the city and saw clashes between protesters and sympathisers and the Prussian police force. But the defeat of the French and other political changes led to Breslau becoming part of the German Empire in 1871, and the city really began to grow and develop. A new market square became a hub of trade and prosperity, and the city's population grew massively. But when Emperor Wilhelm II abdicated in 1918, this was to mark the end of the German Empire, and Breslau then fell under the Weimar Republic. This section of the museum takes you through these more recent times of great change and building tensions for Germany and the rest of Europe. Of course, we all know this didn't end well for Germany, and Breslau would see its own share of controversy. Indeed, during 1938 the city hosted the German Gymnastics and Sports Festival at the now named Olympic Stadium, and a large number of people turned out to attend the event, lining the streets, like here outside the palace, and desperate to see a special guest, let's say a certain bad Austrian painter. And this would just be the start of the city's pain throughout the Second World War, and especially at the end when German troops in the city were encircled and besieged by the Soviet forces, and a 3-month-long bombardment of the city with house-to-house fighting ensued right through to the end of the war in Europe. The museum does not shy away from what happened during this time and the destruction of the city. It was very moving to see and heartbreaking to discover the absolute destruction of the city and the resulting insane loss of life. Obviously, after the war, the city became part of Poland under the terms of the Potsdam Conference and was renamed Wrocław. The majority of the predominantly German population was expelled as part of the terms, to be replaced by Poles. However, under communism, Wrocław continued to suffer oppression and economic hardships. It would seem that only after the fall of communism that Wrocław began to redefine itself as a modern, progressive European city, a process that continues to this day as it gains momentum and continues to flourish. And that brought me to the end of the main exhibition tour, but we're not finished yet, as there's also another wing containing a collection of coins and medals, and a further exhibition of paintings. So overall, I found this museum very extensive with a lot of information and detail, plus some truly stunning exhibits. It painted the city's rich and varied history very well and portrayed the hard times in a fair and balanced way. The museum also has a very atmospheric cafe down in the basement, which was completely empty when I visited, and also it has very clean toilets. There's even a small gift shop with some unusual and unique items on offer. I'd definitely recommend a visit and urge you to opt for the audio guide, which I found very useful and enriched the experience for me. Anyway, I hope you liked this video and found it useful. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you somewhere else in the world on my next video. See ya!